What is up, God Gamers, and welcome back for a patch note rundown for 13.14. Normally, I wait till Tuesday for the official notes to go live, but I thought I'd do something different and just live react to Mort Dog's video as we're going through it. I'm going to watch it at 1.5 times speed to kind of, keep this video hopefully below an hour, because I will be reacting and giving my thoughts and meta predictions as we go through. I have not watched anything. I don't know what's going to happen in this rundown. I don't know nothing about it, so this will be a live reaction. And God bless, do I just hope that... I just hope something happens to Slayers and Zed, man, because if I have one more Zed or Katarina jump my 3-star 3-item carry one more time, I'm going to have an aneurysm. But anyways, let's check it out. Hopefully there's not too many overbuffs. The devs so far have been overbuffing things way too hard. So let's hope we get kind of not a huge meta thrash. So let's see.
And see what we're looking at. First off, we got some system changes. First off, Nox Crya, not one of the more popular portals, but a fun one where you get 3 items. We banned What the Forge from appearing. That augment will no longer appear.
Cool.
Just causes a lot of bugs, so that's fixed. All right, the first of our portal reworks, Petrosite Forest.
God bless. I mean, dude, both of the Demacia ones are trash. The Yuumi Zoom Zone is trash.
To give 150 health to everyone on your team, boring. Now you will start the game with 3 component anvils. So this gives you a chance.
Good quality of life, change the Warlord.
To build your best in slot items. Everyone's going to try to build some early items, push that. So pretty cool to have 3 extra components. Should be a nice solid. Not going to be one of the S tier portals, but should be kind of fun. Warlord's Palace. This is the one that gives you sort of the old treasure dragon at 4/7. We want this one to be fun and exciting, so we are lowering the reroll cost from 2 to 1 gold. Should allow you to play that and still have fun. Sweet.
Cool.
One thing to note, though, is I did notice while testing PvE, there's a text bug. It'll say 2 gold on the text. I promise you it's 1 gold. It's working. So should be more fun. And then finally, Yuumi Zooms.
Oh, one more thing to note about these changes is these are almost certainly the changes that'll go through, but sometimes they change a few numbers or revert some changes. There's like a soft lock that they do on Sunday, but then they can change some things on Tuesday before this goes live. So maybe a few things will change, especially if they try to overbuff something.
Zone. This is the one that used to say at 20 seconds start overtime.
Yeah,
Again, not very exciting. We kind of went crazy here. The replacement is pretty wild. When you buy XP, gain an additional 2.
So it's almost level up. Level up is you gain 3 XP.
So this is going to allow you to hit 9 much quicker. If you're one of those people that really hates the level 7 meta, this is the portal for you. You're gonna be
Dude, okay, but imagine running ASOL and then you go into this. So I know it has like diminishing returns the more you'd stack on it, but you would just get such a fast level 9. I don't know, it'd be interesting. You know, a change they really need to make to the game is they need to have, when you're loading into the game, you can tab on people's portrait and it'll show you what legend they're playing. Similar to when you play League and you see their mastery level. They really need to add that so that, because it can inform your decision on what portal to stand on. You know what I'm saying?
Pretty quick. So Yuumi Zoom Zone and your little legends move fast, which is always fun. So there you go. All right, strongest unit. A lot of confusion right now on strongest unit and how it works. This is for things like Demacia, Shurima, Lesser Jewel Lotus, stuff like that. Now it's consistent. The way it works is, first thing it does is it checks who has the most items. Okay, cool. You have the most items, you're the strongest.
Yeah.
If there's a tie, it's the most recently fielded unit. Which means, if there's a tie, all you have to do is take a unit out, put it back.
Oh, God bless, because this is so... Yes. Okay, God bless. Thank you.
So now you have much better control.
Did they change this, or just not work? Because I feel like it's worked for me sometimes, but man, trying to like swap out Demacia items, it's like, it's been a pain.
Over who is the strongest.
God bless.
This should help things like Yordle, Demacia, and again, I think Lesser Jewel Lotus is going to be wild now because of this. All right, on the loot system side, Krugs, Wolves, and Raptors will now always drop at least 2 orbs. It's just, nothing felt worse than doing a Krugs and seeing 1 orb pop out of Krugs. Even if it was fair, it wasn't fun. So fix that. Mana Reave across the board has been lowered from 35% to 30%. This mostly affects Ahri, Freljord, and Shroud of Stillness. All of those
very good, very good. Dude, I really hope there's a Zephyr nerf in here. Dude, Zephyr is so unbelievably broken this set because fights are completely decided in like the first few seconds of the fight. And man, dude, I really hope something happens to Zephyr, man. Or I don't know. Something
very well, and 35% Mana Reave is pretty strong. So there you go. And then finally, Training Dummy. This is the super serious change. Training Dummy now has 50 AD. You might be asking, why does Training Dummy have 50 AD? Well, literally the only reason is so that if you're playing Wandering Trainer and it gets Deadeye, it can proc it. That's it. So just a fun change, but hopefully should make Wandering Trainer, which is a really fun augment, even more fun. So cool.
Very cool.
All right, on the trade side, Darken. We're trying to do some Aatrox buffs here, and you'll see some Aatrox buffs later. But Darken will respawn now after 4 seconds instead of 5. So hopefully it makes Aatrox even easier to come back.
Yeah, because when Aatrox spawns in overtime, he's completely useless.
Back out and do some cool stuff. Demacia, again, as I mentioned, Demacia, not really a trait people are leaning into. You see a lot of 3 Demacia.
You know, I played a vertical Demacia game today. By the way, I climbed the Grandmaster today. I'll probably make a post on the community page today. I just started playing like a human and stopped playing Dragon King. We climbed up to Grandmaster. And I had one game where I played vertical Demacia. It was a free top 4.
For things like, your Kale Poppy comp. But no one's really going Demacia vertical.
I did Kale Fast 9.
So we're going to get back to
Fast 9.
MR, 5, 10, and 25 if you can somehow hit 9 Demacia. Okay, multicaster. So it turns out on PvE, there was a time when multicaster was 50, 100%. Basically 50% reduced spellcast. And we nerfed it to 40, right? We nerfed it to 60% reduced effectiveness. Well, we screwed up, and we only nerfed 2 multicaster, not 4. So if you've ever felt like 4 multicaster was a big spike in power, it was. Turns out.
This makes a lot of sense to me.
So we fixed the bug, but this is a big nerf to 4 multicaster.
Yes,
So 4
God
multicaster.
bless. God bless. A nerf 2 reroll build. God bless.
Now instead of 2 spells doing 50% effectiveness,
What I hope for this patch is I really hope we go into a 4-cost flex meta.
we'll do 40% effectiveness. So it is a big nerf to multicaster. Be aware of that. But now it's the numbers it was always supposed to be. Piltover. T-Hex damage has been lowered just a little bit. Piltover, we're still, looking at it in the future, but for now we're just lowering its power.
I think that's a good change, just a small nerf. Once the T-Hex really gets online, it's like really strong. So I think
This is
that's
mostly to
fine.
make up for the fact that a lot of the units that play around Piltover, things like Zeri, got buffed. So we had to kind of compensate for that so that every game is
Oh,
just
okay,
two
cool.
Piltover. And then
Yeah,
to help
Zeri
out
needs a
core tournament
buff.
players like Rain that maybe sell their T-Hex too quick, you cannot sell your T-Hex until after it gains its power and charge. We've seen a few times where players were like in a hurry try to sell it and miss out. So that shouldn't be an issue anymore.
Good change.
All right, Rogue. And don't worry if you're already freaking out seeing, oh my god, Rogue buff. The champions are
Rogue
getting
buff.
nerfed, so don't worry.
Okay,
But
yeah, God
nobody
bless.
really plays 4 Rogue. It's just not a trait. People play 2 all the time, but nobody plays 4. So we're increasing the power of the bleed at 4. And quality of life stuff. Rogues are now temporarily CC immune while dashing, so this should help them be able to dash more consistently. And Rogue units will no longer cancel their dash if triggered during a cast animation.
Depending on the other, Rogue units will no longer cancel their dash. Oh, God bless. God bless. This is so good, dude. I was playing a lot of like reroll Katarina. I was just testing on the previous patch because I was trying to find something off meta. And man, Katarina would cancel her dash so often, dude. It was so frustrating. So that's super good. There's definitely going to be some Rogue builds. Really interested to see what he does to the champions here because my God, I am so sick of my backline getting one shot by Katarina and Zed as soon as I spike, man.
That disallows movement. So this should help Rogues get to the backline more consistently and power up for Rogue. Now again, I know a lot of you are thinking it's already like Zed meta, good champs like Echo, Viego. Don't worry, we got you later. Just stay tuned.
All right.
Shadow Isles. This is an interesting
Let
one.
him cook.
But right now, the shield duration, there's nothing worse than playing 6 Shadow Isles, having this giant shield, and then it just disappears. Feels pretty bad. So we're increasing the duration. Now, it says we're nerfing the amount of instances to proc it, but if you've ever tried to play Gwen carry, you know that, like, she just doesn't proc her shield sometimes. So you might be wondering, why are we nerfing this? Well, we fixed a bug. It now counts all instances of damage instead of just attacks. So what was happening is Gwen's spell was, like, counting once or even 0 as an auto. That's fixed. So now they proc it
Yeah, so she procs it like 6
very
times.
quickly.
Yeah,
and so to
okay.
compensate, we had
That
to
makes
lower
sense.
the number of procs. But generally, this should all just be a buff to Shadow Isles. You should get your shield more consistently, and the trait should be much more playable.
You know, there's something to think about though, because if the shield lasts long, so it's like sometimes this could be not super great on Callista, this 12 to 15, because like maybe her shield would just fall off naturally, and then you just want to re-get a new shield. So there's something to think about there a little bit, but yeah, probably overall buff. Yeah.
All right, Slayer, one of the few big trait nerfs. Slayer is very strong. Just for putting in 2 Slayer,
Yeah.
you get 15% Omnivamp. That's very powerful. So we're lowering that back down to 12%.
God bless.
And then the damage increase threshold at 75% basically means most of the time Slayers are doing a truck ton of damage. We're lowering that back
Yeah,
to
I mean, you have to auto once, and then you're at that threshold.
60%,
So
so you have to get them low before you get that double damage.
yeah, this is just a
So again,
revert.
This is one of the bigger nerfs in the patch. To Slayers get really out of control at like 4, 5, and 6. This should hit Kale. This should hit Zed a little bit to get them back down to what we want
I just want Zed gone. I want Zed gone for a patch, please.
that
Please.
bar to be. So, all right.
Just be gone for a patch.
Continuing on, Strategist. This might be a surprising buff, but one of the things is we're seeing things like Lux and Azir be played in Strategist, but not in Shurima and Demacia and Sorcerer and stuff like that. And a big part of that was just Strategist was giving way too much AP to the team. So we're lowering the amount of AP that Strategist gives so that we can put buffs in those champions a little later. So you'll see some
All right,
Strategist
let him
champion
cook.
buffs
We'll
and
see.
things like Lux, but the trait itself was getting too much AP, so that hopefully those champions can be played in other compositions as well. Techno Genius. This is Heimerdinger's trait. Mechanoswarm will now actually properly work if you have more than one. So if you want to play 3 Mechanoswarm, it will actually burn 3% now. It was only burning for 1.
Yeah, but who actually buys 3 Mechanoswarm? You go 1 Mechanoswarm plus 2 Collector if you're or whatever, or yeah, Goldenator. You go 1 Mechanoswarm plus 2 Goldenator if you're super far ahead. If you need frontline, you just don't even take this one. And then the other variation, like who takes 3 Mechanoswarm? Okay, I don't. Yeah.
To compensate, we lowered the magic damage a bit, but now it finally works. Void. Void is a really good opener. If you have 3 Void, that Remora actually hits pretty hard, takes a lot of damage. It was kind of doing too much damage for how good it was, so we lowered its base AD quite a bit. But 6 and 8 Void, not really doing it except at low elos. Baron is still very good at low elo.
Yeah, 6 is like fine for stabilizing. Like you can stabilize on level 7 and that can get you to level 8, and sometimes that can just secure you top 4, but your board can never have a Rift Herald on it. Like in game, your in game board can never have a Rift Herald on it. So definitely need a buff here. I'm not sure about the Baron buff. But I do not see anybody playing Baron anymore. But Baron was really strong last patch, so we'll see if this means anything.
Buffing Herald, honestly, I think it still needs.
I think this buff is fine. The issue was Baron was dealing too much damage before, so it's fine.
But we're trying to go light here, so Herald gets buffed, and then Baron gets to be a little bit more durable, so it can unload. It still falls apart pretty quick to some late game DPS, but.
Guys, I just looking at this without seeing any other changes, the spell damage buff is really nice. I think a lot of people will be getting onto the tech of playing 6 Void for like a stabilization comp for like a top 4 comp. I think maybe people will get on that tech.
Make Void more of an option.
We'll see.
All right, on the champion side, again, trying to focus on mostly buffs here. Cassiopeia.
Ooh, I really like how they're nerfing Jhin. I really like that they're nerfing his Ionia bonus and not his base, because Jhin is still really good. Like if you ever just ran like Jhin with a 2-star Renekton frontline in early game and he still fucks, you know what I'm saying? Like he's still good. I really like how they're hitting him here rather than just overall the unit. I like that a lot because it allows you to play more flexible with your front lines in the early game. Very good change, honestly. Let's look at the Cassiopeia. He's about to say it. So this is interesting because now she'll be able to reproc, because if you don't know, Cassio has a second part of her spell where she deals additional damage if they're already healing reduced. So this is like a weird way to shift her power, because if you put blue buff on her as an item holder in the early game, she'll like reapply her spell really fast and she'll actually increase her damage. But what I've been doing when I've been playing Cassio is I'll just build a Sunfire and then I insta-proc it. So in the case where you already had a Sunfire, I think it's actually a reduction in damage. It's actually a small nerf. But if you're just running her solo and you get some mana items, I think it's a small buff, actually.
Cassiopeia's cycle just takes way too long if you don't have a Sunfire.
Yeah.
You have to cast the first time.
Oh, that's exactly what he's saying. Okay.
Then you have to cast the second time to get the bonus damage from the wound. It takes forever at 40 mana, even with 2 Invoker. If you had a Cassiopeia 2 in the early game, she could be an okay item holder, but you were never excited about it. You were never like...
You know what's some tech is you run 2 Cassios, one with a mana item, one without a mana item, and then one will proc for the other one. It's very... I got on some tech on that earlier this patch.
Yes, sweet. Cassiopeia. So we're trying to change that. So the mana goes down to 30. This makes blue buff Cassiopeia a lot better.
Oh my god, I'm seeing the buffs to the Void units here. He's going to say something about it here, but oh my god, that strat that I was just talking about for the free top 4, that could be a strat on this patch. You go free, you just go to, man, you take the Voids early game, you just force in the 6 Void. Once you just roll it down on 7, hey, all you need is 1 Kaisa. That might be a strat, guys. Might be a top 4 strat. We'll see.
One of the premier blue buff holders. Obviously, to compensate, we lowered the damage a bit, but this is still a DPS up by a lot. So Cassiopeia should be a lot better. Cho'Gath. Cho'Gath, I think we over-nerfed on PvE. Cho'Gath reroll is supposed to...
You know what I'm not liking so far? I'm not liking that I'm seeing nerf to AD unit, buff to 3 AP units. That's not something I like.
To be kind of fun, see how many stacks you can get up to that like 1,000 health, bonus health from the stack, get those big bites. So we're buffing 2 and 3-star HP on kill, and the spell HP
Let him
ratio.
cook, let him cook.
This should allow you to go, Cho'Gath. And by the way, you're seeing the Cho'Gath buff, Malzahar buff. You can also see why we nerfed Void 3. Probably didn't need to have all the power in Void 3 openers. Speaking of which, Malzahar does get a spell buff here. He's still kind of an idiot. He still misses his spell a lot. But at least if it hits, it can kind of hit hard now. You can actually play Malzahar as an item breaker. And he will actually destroy half their shield. So if you're ever up against like an Ionia comp, or not an Ionia comp, a Targon comp or something like that, you can break through the...
I don't think Malzahar is that bad. He falls off the second half of... He falls off on stage 3 pretty hard, especially once... If you have a really good front line, I think Malzahar is actually pretty decent. Right now, I think he's actually pretty decent. Not as a reroll, but as an item holder. I don't know if he needs all this.
Their shield with Malzahar. Jhin. The 3 Ionia opener. If you have a Jhin, an Aurelia, and a Set, you were set. Pun intended. So Jin's Ionia damage.
Yeah, it's pretty busted.
We still want Jhin to be good in like a 2 Deadeye comp, and Jhin will still be very powerful. His spell's not being nerfed. But that 3 Ionia did need to come down to make the opener's bar kind of even. So again, this should make more, level 4 comps.
Yeah, everybody knows the Ionia opener is so broken.
Kind of viable. Continuing on at level 1, Orianna got kind of a rework here. Basically a big simplification. The problem with Orianna was, imagine very often you would have like your Orianna and Malzahar against their Samira and Cassiopeia. Your Orianna would shield herself, and then it would explode and do nothing, and you'd miss out on a ton of spell damage, and it sucked. So now what it does is she just shields an ally, great, still shields them, and then her next auto does some pretty big damage.
That's a really good quality of life change. You know what I'm seeing so far? Again, guys. Buff to 4 AP units. Nerf to 2 AD units.
I don't think Orianna reroll is going to be crazy, but I think she can actually be a decent item holder for like a Death Cap or an Archangel and do some decent damage.
There's a nerf to Viego here, but who puts items on Viego,
in the early game before you transition? It should make Orianna not as much of a dead unit. Samira, very much like Cassiopeia, We want Samira to be something that you can play early Noxus, Challenger, not that those comps need buffs or anything, but
Yo, blue buff Samira has some tech.
Samira herself. So she's going to cast more often, allowing you to shred that armor quicker, get through that to compensate. The spell damage goes down a little, but she'll be casting more often. And again, this is meant to be a buff to Samira. Viego is
another buff to an AP unit. I mean, you put tank items on this guy, but like if you played like Shurima opener and you build a spark and
paying the price a little bit of the 4 rogue buff. So Viego power goes down. Shadow Isles also got buffed. So it's just his stab damage. The stacking damage is still just as good. So this is a very light nerf.
All right, as long as Aphelios and Zeri gets buffed, I think we'll be okay.
I know you're looking at this and saying, "Wow, this seems like a 10% nerf or bigger." No, it's just the stab, not the stacking. So shouldn't be too bad on Viego, but he did need to come down. And then finally, Renekton. This is a small change, but it is a buff. Is that we slightly reduce the wind up time for Renekton's cast, so he'll be able to spin quicker and maybe
it's a nice quality of life change.
Starts to wind up and then dies and misses out on a heal.
Yeah.
It could kind of feel bad. So small.
It is a good quality of life change.
All right, on to 2 costs. A lot of 2 cost champions getting buffed here. Ashe.
Okay, buff to some AD units, buff to more AP units over here, man. Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah, why are they buffing okay, all right. In the context of them buffing every single AP unit so far, the Jinx buff makes sense. But not in that context, I don't know why Jinx is getting buffed.
If you put items on Ashe, you were silly.
Oh, now only okay, it's quality of life. Okay, it's actually power neutral. Now only every other rocket. Okay.
That's silly. Don't put items on Ashe. Well, now you can. The spell damage is going up quite a bit here. So an early Ashe 2 with like a Death Blade could do some work here. So give Ashe a try. Should be good. All right, this is probably one of the scarier buffs, but Galio. Galio's basically been a non-existent tank. Would you rather have a Galio 2 or a Maokai 2 right now? Kind of the Maokai. So Galio's getting quite a bit of buffs here.
True.
His mana cost is going down. At 3-star, the spell DR is going up to 25%, and then he's going to heal a bit more.
I was seeing some people writing on Twitter, Invokers getting buffed in like 20 different ways. Invokers do suck. They do suck. But we'll see.
So this should allow Galio to help both the
These are a lot of these are a lot of buffs to AP lines. These are a lot of buffs.
Tank should be good to go. All right, Jinx. So I think a lot of people were shocked to see Jinx buffs. What? Jinx is already doing very well. That's true. Jinx is doing well, which we're glad. Glad to see Jinx doing well. But there is a bit of a nerf in here, which is that now only every other rocket from her spell counts as an attack for items like Hurricane. So for those of you that were running like Hurricane, Ginsu's Jinx and getting tons of stacks, that got cut in half. To compensate, the spell gets to hit a little harder. So it should be power neutral, give or take, and make her less bound to those specific items. But that's why she's Soraka.
I'm fine with that.
Another scary buff because Soraka, a lot of high elo players really enjoy a
Soraka's good. Soraka is a good unit. I don't think she needs a buff.
Soraka 2 in the early game can be very good. We didn't nerf her healing any. We did buff her damage. The idea here, hopefully, that like you could play Soraka carry. From what I've gathered, I still don't think it's quite.
Dude, Soraka is the best unit in the Invoker build.
There might still be work to do, but Soraka 2 is still going to be.
I don't think that's the spot where you need to buff Invokers.
Very powerful
personally,
unit, especially with the Taric buffs, which you'll see in a bit. So
Taric's getting buffed.
A lot more Targon Invoker openers that can be really scary. All right, Swain, another champion that like Swain is amazing. Stage 2.
Buff to AP unit. Buff to AP unit.
And then you put items on him, and you hit stage 3 and 4, and he falls off a cliff, and Sorcerer can't really play the game much. So we're trying to make sure he can actually cast like more than once a fight ever. So we're lowering his mana cost. His spell goes down in duration, which means he'll do a little less damage, but it's actually a buff here because he was mana locked during the spell. And so that's going to allow him to recast again, gain that extra health, and be tanky for even longer. So again, this should help Sorcerer
Why is Warwick getting buffed?
Got nerfed, and kind of help those comps out a bit. Teemo's interesting because if you look in the data, Teemo's doing really, really well. Just never with items. People are playing him with Sona, Vel'Koz. Maybe you play him.
Yeah, you don't put items on Teemo.
Kale and Poppy comp, but you never.
There's some people who play slow roll Teemo carry, but nah.
Play Teemo. So we want to reward you for playing the 4-star Teemo. We're buffing the 4-star Teemo spell damage, and again, this also compensates a little bit for both the multicaster and the strategist nerfs that came with it. Warwick, like a lot of people are surprised to see this one also. But Warwick is getting a buff here. He is meant to be a tank Razan. If you want to put tank items on him, he can do well. He should be able to do that. This will come with a Ravenous Hunter nerf later that you'll see, obviously.
Okay.
Do want to make
okay, that's great. As long as they're nerfing Ravenous Hunter along with that makes complete sense to me.
Warwick a little stronger here. And then again, we talked about not too many nerfs here, but Zed definitely cranking out the damage, especially at 3-star, and with the rogue buffs and the rogue consistency changes. So Zed is losing 5 of his AD. Remember, this is base AD, so this is actually like an 8% damage nerf alone. And then also the 3-star
everybody
spell is
loves this
10 base damage, which is again multiplies very highly. So there should be a decent size nerf to Zed. He's getting hit with this. He's getting hit with the Slayer nerf. So, but hopefully he'll feel like a 2 cost and not a 3.5 cost. So, all right, Akshan again, another one that I think a lot of people were surprised to see on the buff list, but.
Oh, nice. His ability can no longer be interrupted through CC. You know what happens whenever you have Rune Ends? It'll proc the Rune Ends, but it won't proc his actual spell. Now only every other rocket from his spell now counts for items like Rune Ends. Okay, so you're not as tied to Rune Ends, but Rune Ends is still going to be really good on him. Grenades is a
small
good
damage
item,
buff.
like overall.
His ability can no longer be interrupted by CC, so nothing worse than starting your ult and then getting Jarvan ulted and losing your entire spell. But this is mostly to compensate for the fact that now Hurricane and Ginsu's, etc., only count every other shot, so you're not getting like 7 free Hurricane shots per spell cast. So that's kind of the balance here.
Runaan's is his best item, but I think he works without it as well.
John will not be as bound to Hurricane. Garen, well, I mean, we over-nerfed Garen a bit. Obviously,
you know, this is probably fine.
This was a bit of an overreaction to all the Zeke's building that was going on, but Garen should not feel like a dead unit in your shop. If you get a Garen 2 on 2/2, you should be excited, not sad. So we're kind of rebuffing him quite a bit here, mostly in the AD space. So he goes back to 2 base attacks per spin. His spin AD goes up. The attack speeds per spin goes down a bit, so he can't scale quite as hard, but his baseline should be a lot better.
I want to hear what he has to say about Karma before I give my thoughts.
Karma gets a buff here that looks pretty big on paper. The big thing is 6 Invoker Karma wasn't that great because so much of the power was bound in the Ionia bonus.
Yeah, 6 Ionia Karma is really strong. I like how they're doing this change. I do like how they're doing this change. I think Karma is one of the units who does need a buff in the Invoker build. But man, there are 5 buffs to Invokers so far.
So now if you get an early Karma and you want to run 4 Invoker without Ionia, it should actually feel a lot better. But if you're just running Karma in an Ionia comp as an extra, she'll be about the same. So again, this is mostly to buff Karma outside of Ionia. Katarina, again, mostly paying for the sins of Rogue here, goes down in power a little bit. She was also a little too good. We do still have some fields to work on with her. A lot of the time she'll cast her spell in like...
Remember, she has a quality of life change that she will do her Rogue proc better. She will not cancel her jump as often, because if you guys have played Katarina, she'll cancel her jump. And they said they fixed that on Rogue, so...
1 dagger will hit or something. So still working on that, but even in that, but the meantime, she did need to come down in power a small amount. All right, Rek'Sai. This is meant to be power neutral to easier to play. If Rek'Sai doesn't get her execute, her threshold with that true damage, she feels so bad. But if she did, she'd basically go infinite and go pretty wild. So we're lowering the heal that she would get from that, so you'll need to build things like Bloodthirster more, but making it easier to get to that true damage level, and so hopefully making Rek'Sai a little bit easier to play and not have to be the exact 3-star champion she needs to be. All right, probably the single biggest change...
Guys, they buffed... I do definitely think that Void 6 Rift Herald will be a really good top 4 strat, especially early patch when people are trying to figure stuff out. Play 6 Void, free top 4 probably.
In the entire patch, Taric. You're looking at these numbers and you're going, my God, these numbers are insane.
What the fuck? He casts a half second later.
And that's because Taric was bad. Taric was a trait bot. If you ever tried to put tank items on this guy, you regretted it. You felt terrible.
My guy, it's because the builds that he functions in suck. He's good in Aphelios and Invokers and Sorks. Who the fuck are playing those builds? Taric. I don't think Taric is a bad unit. I think Taric is a super good unit. It's just his builds suck.
And that really sucks for people who
you're buffing all of his builds.
Trying to play Targon or Sorcerer. Well, that's going to get changed here. Taric is meant to be a 3-cost tank. If I have a Taric 2, it should feel better than your Maokai 2, your Galio 2, whatever. And
yeah, he does in the builds that he works in, which is Aphelios, Invokers, and Sorks, which are builds that are not meta, but all the buffs that they are making is going to make those builds meta. So far...
Taric's going to be a beast. Lowered his mana cost quite a bit, raised his spell shield quite a bit. He's going to be shielding things. Now remember, when he shields, it absorbs everything. So that shield gets...
This is buff number 6 to Invokers.
Drawn pretty quick. But with something like 3 Targon, 2 Sorcerer, these can be some big shields. So expect to see a lot of Taric. That's probably the biggest change. Taric is going to be a playable tank. So be on the lookout.
My God.
All right, in the 4-cost space, a lot of green text here, which is good. We don't want the game to be all rerolls. I know a lot of you may be thinking all these 1 and 2 and 3-cost buffs. It's going to be a reroll meta. No. Aphelios gets 5 AD, which again, base AD. That means this is close to like an 8% buff. But
the Taric buff also helps him. I've seen some people say, oh, Aphelios only gets 5 AD. Well, Taric is his tank, so
Aphelios also
this is
benefiting
helpful.
from things like the Targon.
Also, there's you can run a 3 Targon build with Soraka. Soraka got buffed as well.
Buff. So Aphelios will be doing more damage. Sweet. Gwen. Small buff here. This is actually really minor, but when she gets that mist...
The problem so far is the pathways to get to Aphelios were nerfed. Jhin and Samira wasn't nerfed. I was like kind of power neutral, but like Jhin got nerfed. That's the easiest pathway to Aphelios, so his pathway got nerfed, and all the other AP lines got buffed. So that's something to consider as well.
That gives her the extra armor and MR. That'll last a little longer. But more importantly, we've also improved her dash AI, and she'll now try to continue attacking the current target if she's able to. No more like switching targets and like...
Yeah, it's so annoying whenever she's about to assassinate the backline and then she switches.
You down to 10% and then leave. So she should be a little bit more...
Yeah, shit's annoying.
All right, Lux. I think seeing that we just hit Lux in the last patch, to see her come back up, maybe raising a lot of eyebrows. But again, this is with the strategist nerf. Lux gets buffed a bit to do some damage. And the bigger change here that I think is really nice is her ability can no longer be interrupted by CC. There was nothing.
But I am so happy that this quality of life change. I don't know if she needs a damage buff. You just buffed her entire line. You buffed all the AP lines, and you buffed Tarek. Oh my god.
Thing worse than having your Lux cast just start into a
You buffed Cassio, which is a blue buff holder.
Jarvan ult and lose it all for no freaking reason. It felt
You buffed Karma, who's a blue buff holder.
so bad.
Oh my god.
So Lux will do what Lux is supposed to do. We're hoping that we're going to see some 6 sorcerer Lux, maybe some 7 demonic.
Oh, God bless his Sejuani change. Now gains her shield immediately on cast. Dude, my god. Quality of life change, great.
And then Sejuani, it's funny, this looks like a small buff, but it actually works out to be a really big buff.
Yeah, it is a big
she'll
buff.
Now gain her shield immediately on cast instead of after a delay.
Every time my Sejuani is casting for the second time, she never gets her shield.
There were way too many times where she'd start to cast and then die anyway. She will get her shield much quicker, so Sejuani should be a really good tank this patch. Urgot, a small mana buff of 10, so he can cast a little bit more often. This should help Zaun and Deadeye.
Okay, this buff is, I don't know if he needs buffed, but this is a good buff in the context of everything else they're doing.
But also 30 starting mana, so he can get that first cast, move into like the enemy backline, and start proccing off of his legs a bit. So, small buffer got there. Yasuo, one of the few nerfs here in the 4-cost space.
Guys, we might actually be getting a flex 4-cost meta. We might actually, unless the AP buffs are too powerful.
But we're actually really happy with where Yasuo is. He's doing what he's designed to do. Might be frustrating, I get that, but he's doing what he's designed to do. The only thing we don't like is that you build him like RFC, Edge of Night, Bloodthirster, 3 defensive items, and he still one-shots your backline. Feels pretty bad. We want him to have to at least put like an IE or a Deathblade in there to actually get some big damage. So we're lowering the spell AD a bit. Again, we want you to put at least 1 damage item on this guy for him to unload. So small nerf to Yasuo there. And then Zeri. I think obviously Zeri fell off a bit from the last nerf. Very bound to Piltover. She can still work.
Another nerf to an AD unit. I think that's fine though. Yasuo really works in AP lines as well.
She gets the 5 AD buff, same as Aphelios.
I think it's fine.
Her overcharge will last longer. This hopefully makes her a little less bound to Ginsu's. Part of the problem was you needed as many shots as you could get in that 6 seconds.
Ooh, nice. 9-second duration. That's a good buff.
That'll be 9, 9, 15. And I'm calling it now, by the way, the 15 at 3-star. She's still going to struggle to kill super tanks at 3-star, so this doesn't fix her 3-star problems. It's kind of a small band-aid. And then finally,
it's a good buff.
A bug with Robotic Arm because of the way her attack system works in our code with the whole 3 attacks that it couldn't quite work. She would like proc her first auto, and then the other 2 would cause a delay that would cause Robotic Arm to not proc. TLDR, we fixed it. Robotic Arm actually good on Zeri now, and so that should also help her be even better.
Very cool.
All right, 5 costs. Again, lots of green text. Aatrox. I think some people struggle to make Aatrox work. He's pretty hard to get to work. You already saw the Darken buff earlier, but we want if you get an Aatrox 2 with like IE Bloodthirster Titans on in level 8, you should be strong. You should be strong. And so we're trying to make that true. And so we did this with 10 more armor.
His cast animation speed, God bless, that's definitely what he needs fixed. His cast animation is so bad.
For an MR, 10 less mana to get started, higher spell AD percentage, his revive animation speed goes up, and his cast animation speed goes up. So all of this should make Aatrox quite a bit better. All right, Ahri is another one. Now, Ahri is one I think a lot of high elo players will tell you is still very, very strong. She didn't really need like a numbers buff, and I agree. But we reduced the overall cast time of Essence Thief. So now she'll go back to attacking quicker, and we significantly reduced the windup of the 3rd cast. So
yeah, I really like. I don't know if she needs the windup buff here because I think Ahri is super good. I think she struggled a little bit with Zeds jumping on her and that sort of thing. But definitely the part of her kit that feels really wonky is when she does her Essence Theft and she just like stands there doing nothing. And then is like awkwardly starts attacking again. So yeah, good change.
She should just feel better and have less of a 2-second dance before she casts. So hopefully that makes Ahri even better for a 5-cost. Belveth.
Hey, if you Dragon King enjoyers, it's looking like some good buffs for you guys.
You see a nerf here, but it's minor compared to the buffs. She gets less power from AD here, so the lash is going down in damage, but she'll move faster while in Empress form. And the big one here is that Belveth no longer continues casting on nothing if her target dies with no targets in range. So what would happen is, especially if you didn't have RFC on her, she would like start attacking somebody, they would die, and then she'd just do nothing. She'd just sit there and go like this and hit nothing. Now it will at least move to the next target, even if they're out of range, which should make her less RFC bound. Now don't get me wrong.
Oh, that's great. RFC is still going to be your best
item on her. You can still build it, but no more wasted spells.
Oh, that is so great because yeah, Belveth without RFC versus Belveth with RFC feels like a different unit.
And that's a very big buff to Belveth.
I've been playing a lot of Dragon King.
Rise. We still have a lot of work to do on Rise, to be honest. I think next patch Rise is going to get some big attention. But for now, Shadow Isles needs to cast more often to actually be useful. So lowering that to 40 out of 80. And there you go. That is Champions.
Guys, maybe try Dragon King. Try Dragon King next patch. All the AP lines got buffed. AP lines are good to put. I mean, you can put AD or AP lines, but a lot of the... Yeah, maybe try some Ahri Dragon King comps.
On items. Dragon Claw and Radiant Dragon Claw. Who's ever excited to get 2 cloaks? not a lot of people. So Dragon Claw and Radiant Dragon Claw get some extra MR and some extra HP regen. So
I'm a tank enjoyer.
hopefully Dragon Claw's a little better. All right, Locket of the Iron Solar.
Okay, that's a good buff here, considering they buffed Invoker. And by the way, Ahri is the end game for Ahri is one of the win conditions for Invoker comp. So Invoker has been buffed 7 times.
Right, this is probably the most controversial item change for sure. What you're seeing here is the shield value has gone up from 200 to 300, and the duration goes up to 8 seconds, which means it can actually last a while now. But it only buffs one ally on each side, very much like Chalice and Zeus. Now, some of you might look at this and go, wow, that's a big nerf. We're actually hoping this feels like a buff, because you can concentrate the power, run your 3 frontliners, give them all that Locket value, maybe...
Interesting. I think this is a buff.
Tank on the left with items, tank on the right with items, and Locket in the middle, and not have to feel like you always have to position in that line that kind of griefs your positioning. So it should feel like a bit of a buff.
This is interesting. I'm gonna give this some
It'll take
tries.
some adjustment to get used to how to use it.
Yeah.
But again, something like especially like a 4 or 6 Bastion line with this, that's a lot of effective health. So do keep an eye on it. If we have to go further from there, we will. But again, this is intended to be a buff. And then Radiant Locket of the Iron Solari works the same way it did
I
before.
wonder if those Bastion builds are gonna come back.
But has been underperforming, so giving it back some of its power.
Because since this is buffed pretty good, yeah, maybe these Bastion, because you could just sacrifice one of the Bastions. Like, who cares if your Poppy does?
Sniper's Focus. This is a kind of a for fun change, but I think it fits way better thematically. Sniper's Focus now works like RFC. It grants +1 range. So Sniper's Focus on Belveth should be pretty cool. But to compensate, we lowered the damage per hex down to 8%. This will mean things like Sniper's Focus Ahri get a bit of a nerf. But yeah. I think this is a more fun item.
This is an interesting change. Oh, it'll make it... this is a lot better on Callista now, so she won't have to move. Because this is not a super good item on Callista because she's auto-attacking closest target. But now she won't have to move, which is nice.
And then finally, for some of you that maybe saw in like the data mine stuff, you see things like Radiant Sunfire went from 60% burn to 2% burn. What's going on here is we've changed the tooltips so they accurately reflect burn per second, right? If you see 2%, that's 2% per second. Seeing Radiant Sunfire say 60% was very confusing. You had to do math. We don't want you to do math. TFT players can barely read. So
True.
Now it says what it says. Just a tooltip change. Nothing changed in their power. So there you go. All right, augments.
Ooh, this is interesting
stuff.
3
after the big Draven nerf are underperforming a little bit, so we re-added a small chance to drop multiple gold on stage 3 and beyond. This is meant to buff Draven at gold and prismatic. Tiny
cool. I like that, especially stage 3 and beyond. That's a good change.
Power 1,
like
2, and 3. I think this is an augment that isn't being talked about a lot, but is actually very, very good. Not many people right now are playing Veigar.
I've seen some Veigar enjoyers,
especially since we're going to fix Veigar's bugs, which you'll see in a little bit. Veigar would actually kind of skyrocket in power, and we were expecting him to be S tier. So we're preemptively kind of hitting Tiny Power a little bit. Caretaker's Ally. This is
especially Veigar is the best in the Invoker build. This is a good catch. So 7 buffs to Invokers, 1 nerf. All right, that's the counter.
Playing it on PB, it seems really, really good. So give it a try. But the way it works is
each time you level up, gain the same random.
Every time you level up, you gain the same random tier 3 champion. So if you level from 3 to 4 and it gives you Echo, well, now when you level from 4 to 5, you're gonna get an Echo. 5 to 6, you're gonna get an Echo, etc., etc. So definitely an augment if you take. You're probably playing.
That's interesting, man.
Roll, but who knows? Maybe you I don't know, hit something you're not really interested in and you move on. So yeah, medium.
It is 3 gold every time you level, so just try to conceptualize that going from level 3 to level 8. That is how many? 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8. It's 5 math. That's 15 gold. Is this the silver tier or is this the gold tier? That's 15 gold either way.
So we're gonna try it at silver. We do need more exciting silver augments. So hopefully this should be a fun one that you're willing to take. Obviously, it can't give you also 3 gold. That'd be too good. But medium end shopping as a silver augment should be kind of fun. Unified resistance.
Dude, Unified Resistance definitely is nerfed. Dude, Young Wild on free is broken. Holy shit. Now grants a random component. This is broken. Especially if you're in a win streak position.
Silver, just lowering its armor and MR by
like if you have a really strong early game, this can be a really good indicator to take this because you get a free component which will still help your strength. And then also you can just play balls to the wall aggressive and still get whatever you want from Carousel. I don't think they should buff this. I don't think Young Wild on free is that good. It can be good in the right spot, like if you're really powerful. But like now, it seems like if you get this offered and you're in a really good winning position, this seems really good.
Like Young and Wild and free. I love this augment, but unfortunately, right now you only take this augment if you're in first place. Like that's literally the only time you take this augment is if you're in 3-2, 100 HP with a really strong board. You take this augment. Otherwise, you don't. We want to change that. We want people to have fun with this augment. So it now also grants a random component. So now maybe you'll consider.
No, but taking this at 2-1, like you have like a 2-star Jhin and a decent front line. You take this on 2-1. Woo.
They're like, well, I get a component and I can get carousel advantage, so should be fun. Built Diff 2, the gold one, underperforming a lot, gets a buff, mostly in the attack speed, a little bit health as well.
I never seen anyone playing Built
Diff.
This is
mostly to compensate for like the Jinx and Zeri buffs. So Dueling Gunners is going to come down in power. We don't want the absolute peak of these augments to be too strong, so that gets nerfed.
Yeah, I don't like when builds are dependent on augments.
Know Your Enemy.
I'm fine with that.
Know Your Enemy was it was way too similar to another augment, the corruption one. I forget the name of it, the one that poisons. Contamination? I don't know. Anyway, it was too similar, so we reworked it. Now it says your units deal 15% increased damage. If you and your opponent have the same traits activated, they deal 20% damage instead. So it's still kind of a generic plus damage modifier, but really focused around if you and your opponent have similar stuff. Long distance pals peak was way too good.
Yeah.
I think we've seen some challenger players really figure out how to make this augment really shine, and it'll still be good, but lowering it just a bit. Loving Invocation. This is very similar to the Gunner thing. We saw a lot of Invokers get buffed. You know, we saw...
Okay, 7 buffs to Invokers, 2 nerfs. I like that. Good catch here.
The Soraka buff, the Cassiopeia buff, the Taric. So we're just lowering this augment's power, so it's not such a high ceiling. Mana Burn already gives you a Shroud, which is amazing. Burning 3% of your health per second is also really, really good. That goes down. Ravenous Hunter, overshot it a bit by 1, so stats per stack go from 6 to 5. We still want this to be a playable augment. It's still supposed to be fun. It'll be good, just not quite as OP. Stable Evolution. This augment continues to really overperform, especially at low elo, and especially with the Malzahar and the Cho buffs, as well as the Baron buffs. We did need to lower
this is a good catch
for this augment, so this augment goes down. Caitlyn. I think this buff is really big. I think this is
Caitlyn is giga dog shit.
Ones that'll be underappreciated, but Caitlyn as a legend has kind of been underpicked. Stars Reborn now gives, instead of 3 gold, 6. So not only do you get that big board spike of the 1 star and the 2 star, or 1 cost and 2 cost, but you also get the gold. That's huge.
Yeah, and also if there is like 1 and 2 cost reroll builds discovered, you just literally hold. I watched somebody do this today. It was a rider. I watched him wait until he hit a Zed and then bought Zed, and then had a Z3 so early on in the game.
So I think expect to see a little bit more Caitlyn. Suppressing Fire. This is the Deadeye one. This augment's not great, but if you're playing...
Yeah, guys, maybe give Caitlyn a try. 6 gold?
Like 2 Deadeye and you want to lower your enemy's attack damage by 35%. Cool. I don't know. I think this augment still needs more work. The boss. This is the Set Hero augment.
Yeah, Suppressing Fire sucks.
I think some people have made this work, but it's a little too hard to get to work. So again, raising those stats by just a bit. When Set comes back, he should be a monster. And it turns out giving somebody that much extra AP and attack speed is pretty cool.
Oh, guys, you know what? That Talia build just got buffed here. That Talia build's pretty good. The built diff, or not built diff, the Double Trouble Talia build. It didn't get touched at all. That'll be a reroll build that's still pretty good.
3's a Crowd. This is the one where if you play a lot of 3 costs, you get a bunch of health. This one, I don't know. We might end up undoing this one, but the 3 cost version was just so much weaker than the 2 cost version. We made them equal.
This is true.
We'll see, though. Maybe that ends up being a mistake.
We'll see.
Sorry.
You're excused.
All right, Built Diff 3, much like Built Diff 2. Getting buffed. Cool. All right, speaking of Bard, we already buffed his Silver Augment. His gold stays the same, but his Prismatic is also getting a buff. So now you get the Radiant item at level 7.
This is so good. Okay, this was my biggest complaint about him is because who the fuck goes to level 8? You go to 7, and 7's when you want to spike, right? I was hoping that they would lower 4-cost level 7 odds, and then like they wouldn't have to make these changes. I was really hoping for that because, man, it's really tough to go to level 8.
We see everyone pretty much gets to level 7 pretty consistently. Getting to 8 is pretty hard sometimes.
Ooh.
So now it's level 4, get a component, level 6, get a full item, and level 7, get a Radiant item. So if you're willing to take this Prismatic Augment, you will be up a full item and a component from everybody else at level 7. So it should be the highest peak augment, but you have to get there.
Guys, this Endless Horde buff. Endless Horde, if you don't know, is the worst augment in the game. But this is looking kind of juicy. I think Endless Horde can be good with like Sorks. I think it's good in verticals. I think it can be good in verticals because verticals, you're getting a lot of stat bonuses, especially verticals that have a lot of damage, that you don't take a lot of damage, like Sorks. So your backline, you can get so many extra Sorks, Invokers, that sort of thing. I think this is actually a buff to AP lines again.
Endless Hordes. We brought this augment back.
But this augment is trash. So this definitely needs buff.
And severely undershot its power.
Yes.
Might go down as one of the worst augments in history, averaging something like a 6.7.
Yeah.
So
it's
buffing
crazy bad.
Get 6 more gold, and the HP reduction goes from 40 to 20. We'll go from there, but that is a pretty big buff. Remember, it's still plus 3 units, so cool.
I think this could be good in like Piltover as well. You just have so much bullshit on your board.
Level Up. We're really happy with where Level Up is. It does have one of the highest peaks. It has a very good win rate.
The initial XP, this is a good spot to hit it.
We're giving it the smallest nerf here. The initial XP goes from 4 to 2. The biggest thing this does is you don't get level 4 for free. You will have to spend if you want to get that. So it will make you take a little bit of early damage in the early game. Very small nerf to Level Up though. Starter kit. Speaking of Caitlyn, she gets even better here. We kind of over nerfed starter kit, so now we're going back to you don't get items, but you will still get your 4 cost for free. So at 2-1 you get a 4 cost, at 3-1 you get another one, and then at 4-1 you get the third one. So starter kit will be hopefully an easy.
Oh, let's try Caitlyn next patch, dude. Let's try some Caitlyn. Caitlyn is giga dog shit right now. Good in low elo, but giga. We might try some Caitlyn next time. I'm excited to try Caitlyn.
For a lot of people to play. And then Wellness Trust. We're happy with this augment, just making it a little easier to play. You can get the health at 40 gold instead of 50 gold, so you don't have to hoard quite as much if you want that health back.
Okay.
All right. Now for the small changes. We haven't had a ton of small changes recently, but
this is a good buff. Bruiser 4 Bruiser sucks.
A few to call out here. Bruiser 4, kind of an awkward middle step between Bruiser 6. A lot of people played Bruiser 2 for the 100 health for the team. A lot of people played Bruiser 6 if you're leaning into like Rek'Sai. Not many people are playing Bruiser 4. Small buff.
Yeah,
Deadeye 6 kind of laughable. Deadeye 6 should read every 3 seconds, kill someone. So buffing that up a bit.
Yeah, they just need to. I don't know. They need to make like a different interaction happen at 6 because like I don't know, man. It's tough.
Juggernaut 4. This is to mostly help things like Garen.
I don't think this actually does anything.
Maybe Set in the boss, stuff like that. The Warwick, but Juggernaut 4.
Ooh, maybe we can play Callista's Jugs. Maybe there'll be some Challenger Juggernaut comps now instead of into Ionia because they nerfed Ionia on a couple different ways. Maybe we'll be playing Callista's Jugs, Kaisa's Jugs.
DR is getting raised a bit. Now remember, it goes from a min to a max, so it's a very small buff here. And then Zaun, Robotic Arm, we fixed the bug with Zeri, and because of that, we kind of need to nerf it down, so it goes from 60 to 50%. That way Jinx can actually be excited about other ones as well, so small nerf there. All right, then bug fixes. A lot of bug fixes. We'll continue to fix lots and lots of bugs. I'm going to try to go fast. Here we go. Rolling for days now correctly counts towards frequent flyer and return on investment. Neat. Rolling for days are no longer consumed by Think Fast. Great, if you ever held them for that long for some reason. Summons and training dummies can no longer be selected as the strongest unit for Shurima, Demacia, and Lesser Jeweled Lotus. You hear that, Wandering Trainer? No more trolling us. Removed a small window where Darius could gain mana between his casts after resetting. Technically a small Darius nerf, technically.
Cool.
Removed Curse Crown and Golden Egg from double up game mode, having, it just caused a lot of problems. Golden Egg unit description no longer says it will hatch into a Draconic champion. Cool. T-Hex can now gain mana on the first fight after cashing out if her ability is unlocked. Great. Contagion, I'm probably mispronouncing that. Contagion, that's what it is.
Contagion.
Contagion augment bonus damage now additively stacks with other sources instead of multiplicatively. It was secretly OP.
Okay.
Warlord's Palace and Targon Prime now work in hyper roll. Great. Fixed a bug where Vel'Koz could occasionally fail to multicast if his first cast killed the target. Cool. Yasuo can no longer use his ability on untargetable units. No more Yasuo Zephyr. Lesser Jeweled Lotus and Jeweled Lotus now always grant the correct amount of critical strike chance. So there's your Veigar legend buff. Bastion combat VFX now properly play
I did hear about him being bugged.
rather than their feet, so now they're not standing in a bubble. Buried Treasure 1, 2, and 3 now stack properly instead of disabling the most recently selected one. So small buff to Ezreal if you wanted to play 2 Buried Treasures.
Cool.
Fixed a bug where Demacia could give an additional radiant item when a stronger unit auto-filled an army from bench. Cool. Fixed a bug where Jeweled Lotus augments were not adding their critical strike together. So this was if you ran like Jeweled Lotus and Lesser Jeweled Lotus, they wouldn't work together. Now they do. Again, another Veigar legend buff.
Nice.
The tooltips of Zeke's Herald, Bramble Vest, Edge of Night, Mortal Reminders.
By the way, guys, remember the best legend to play if you want to force Invokers is Veigar.
Static Shiv, Gargoyle Stoneplate, Redemption, Protector's Vow, and Hextech Gunblade now match the Radiant counterparts. Cool. AFK Augment should now always properly allow you to see the shop the round after its effects expire. Great. But this one's great. Bug fix final V2. Think Fast will no longer appear on Augment rerolls. For real this time, pinky promise. I think we've seen that in the patch notes 3 times now, but this time for real. We swear. Loaded Dice can no longer be offered as part of the Targon Prime Blessing. Loaded Dice can no longer be offered in Hyperroll Armories. Loaded Dice can no longer be offered in Double Up Assist Armories. We're basically removing Loaded Dice from the game.
Nice.
It's just a weird item. Time to get rid of it.
Yeah, cool. Let's not do Loaded Dice.
Riftwalk tooltip now correctly states that the Augment grants a Kassadin. Cool. Fixed a bug where the Ionia bonuses would deactivate after summoning a unit during combat. I believe this also affects the Frail.
Yeah, God bless.
Talia will no longer throw rocks and knock at targets when stunned or under Zephyr. Cool. The stun one's actually a pretty big nerf to her. Fixed a bug where Yasuo's spell would trigger enemy Talias to cast their spell on him. Cool. Lucky Gloves Augment will now properly give you Sparring Gloves if you have the Component Buffet Augment. Cool. Shoplifting now works correctly even if your bench is full. Yasuo will no longer lock up and damage his target if he died mid-cast. Dreaming Pool can now grant Rise if Invoker is your top trait. Rise can now appear on carousels. Rise now appears at the end of game screen. Great. Zeri gets full value from Robotic Arm. We already said that.
Rise couldn't appear on carousels?
Rek'Sai will no longer execute enemies through death prevention effects like Edge of Night and Heimerdinger, Repair-O-Matic. And Ahri now correctly gains double mana per second while in her Ionia Spirit form. So technically a buff to Ionia Ahri. And there you go. Decently sized patch. Again, should be a fun patch though because it's mostly buffs.
Okay, so here are my final thoughts. Okay, Invokers currently are one of the worst builds. So maybe Mortdog is cooking and we can buff it this many times. I think Taric is overbuffed. Now, in the context of the builds that Taric works in, are Invokers and Aphelios, and both of those builds are really not very good right now. In that context, it makes sense, but I just don't think Taric is the spot that needed that big of a buff. I just think those builds that he functions in needed more of a buff. But Invokers got a huge buff, but the Aphelios buff didn't get a huge buff. The Aphelios build didn't get a huge buff, just the 5 AD, and then Taric getting buffed. Like, I just think it's a weird way to do it because I just feel like AP got a little bit too much love, and in comparison to the AD comps. And Aphelios does get a huge buff from the Taric buff, but I think it's a weird way to buff Aphelios considering all the AP lines got buffed as well. Maybe Mortdog's cooking. Maybe Mortdog's cooking, but there's a chance that Invokers are overbuffed and that Taric is way overbuffed because Again, like I said, Taric does not perform well in the data, but Taric is a good unit. It's just his builds suck. Invokers and Aphelios suck. But now, I don't know, man. We'll just have to play the game, and we'll have to see. Maybe Mortdog is cooking about that. The other things I'm excited about is Caitlyn. So I think if you guys like playing AP lines, I think those are going to be very good next patch. I think Caitlyn is something you should try. Maybe give it a try. I think maybe even Dragon King strats, especially early on in the patch. Try the Dragon King strat. I think that could be good. They buffed a lot of the legendaries, a lot of quality of life changes on the legendaries. I think the Dragon King strat could be pretty good, especially they buff the AP lines and you want to slam a lot of AP items. That can be good. That 6 Void comp, they buff the Void line really hard. So I think if you want a free top 4, maybe try that 6 Void line. And you don't need a Void emblem. You just roll for a Kaisa on level 7, play for top 4. That can be a good line to play for, maybe. And then I feel like there was one other thing that I was excited about. But, you know, maybe we are getting a 4-cost flex meta. What I want is a 4-cost flex meta, but we'll see how hard these AP buffs hit the meta. If the AP buffs don't hit the meta too hard, and Aphelios does actually open up from this Taric, this big Taric buff, then I will be super happy. Yeah, I'm hoping for a 4-cost flex meta, but I don't know. Maybe too much buffs on the AP lines. We'll see. But anyways, that is Patch Note Rundown. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you on the next one. I love you all, and I love TFT.